Frak, this podcast, come and listen to us talk about Battlestar Galactica. It's a show that we're talking about. Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak, this podcast. I am your cruising host, Jesse Gender, and I'm joined as always by...
I hope you had fun while you were out cruising.
I did have fun while I was out cruising. It was a really good time. Yeah, listeners, I was, the past week, I was out on the Star Trek cruise, which was a really fun time. I was there with my partner. This is my second time going, but her first time going. And it was really fun because I basically trapped my wife on a ship full of Trekkies, and she had to survive for the entire week. But no, she had a fun time. But I really enjoyed it. It was really good. What I like it most for is the cruise is just, it is a bunch of just Trekkies. And after about a day or so, like this is after last year too, where I just kind of knew a bunch of people on the ship. So you kind of just wander around the ship all day long, and then you just run into people like, hey, how you doing? How's your day been? And it's like, and you just talk about nerdy shit all day long. And it's really nice because it feels very community oriented, and you feel like you're just part of a big just community together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something we don't get enough of today. And I wish I just had more of it, generally speaking, not just Star Trek focused, though I like that part of it.
Well, I mean, it sounds very similar to the feelings that I have when I go to Gallifrey 1. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a big convention, and it just feels very nice and community focused and very sweet. And you're all together for like 8 days essentially, and it's really good. And you get to see the actors going around. I got to hang out with like a fun bunch of the lower decks folks like Eugene Cordero and Tawny Newsome, who are really amazing, and a few others. Doug Jones gives the best hugs ever. Like I had heard a lot, like he's been at other conventions, but I've never gone up to him because I always hate going up to some actors that I don't know without having a thing to say. But he was friends with a friend of mine, Dr. Aaron McDonald, and so you're at a bar, and like there's a thing within the Trekkie community that like Doug hugs are like a famous thing. Like Eugene Cordero, who plays one of the characters in Star Trek Lower Decks, he even told me, he's like, yeah, I wanted to meet Doug, and I had all these things that I wanted to say to him, like, oh, you're one of my favorite actors. Your work has meant a lot to me. And then I was gonna say it to him, and then he just came over and hugged me, and it just felt like I didn't need to say anything because it was all there in the hug.
Aww.
It was just very, and like made me like kind of weep. And I was like, in Doug, at the top of the cruise, there's like a big show where everyone gets to meet, like they just announce everyone who's on the cruise. And he said, oh, my goal is to try and hug as many people as I can. So if you haven't gotten a Doug hug, come find me. So anyways, I was at the bar with Dr. Erin and her husband Aaron. We were just hanging out having drinks, and she knows Doug because she's working on Discovery. And she called him over, and she's like, oh, meet our really close friends, me and my partner. And he's like, oh, come here, sweetie. And like he just leaned over. He's huge. He like leaned over.
Well, yeah, he's like 6'6" or something.
He's ridiculously huge. Leaned over and just hugged me. And like I have never experienced a hug this like, and it was like 5 seconds, but it's like the most tender hug of like, wow, I feel very seen and felt in this hug right now. I did not expect it to be that sweet, but he was a very sweet hug. He's a very nice man, and I met him for like all of 30 seconds, but he was great. So,
Aww.
So yeah, Star Trek
That's
cruise,
lovely.
very wonderful. I had a fun time. My partner now realizes that she needs to she's like, the thing I learned is I need to finish Lower Decks and Voyager. And all the rest I don't really care about, but I need to finish Voyager and Lower Decks. I'm like, yeah, those are the great ones. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's the short version. I have many more stories I could probably tell, but that was the fun ones.
I helped a friend move last weekend.
That's about the same. That's about the same
totally.
level of relaxation, I assume. How did it go?
It went fine.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I wasn't the only one helping because I'm in my 40s and I'm 6 feet tall, which means my back can only do so much lifting at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to break it to you, any listeners or viewers who are close to or over 6 feet and who are still in your 20s or 30s, your back is not gonna be your friend for much longer.
Oh, I know that too, and I'm starting to feel it more and more now, but I've always had back trouble because like when I was a kid, I got an injury. I was in Boy Scouts and we went on a like winter like lodge trip. Like we stayed in a lodge and then we'd go hiking in the winter or whatever. It's just one of those little Boy Scout trips. And we did sledding and I slid down the hill and I was like 12, 13, whatever. And there was a bigger kid who was like 17, 18. He was like a big guy. And I went down, slid down the slope and hit his legs and he
Mhm.
landed on me and I clamshelled. Like fully like clamshelled. And yeah, after that I could not breathe. And unfortunately, it was my Boy Scout troop was like, "Oh yeah, you're a man, you can do it. It's
Walk
fine."
it off.
Yeah, and I was like literally unable to breathe and like had to like curl up in a corner. It was not great. And ever since then, I have had back like spasmodic back pain. So, it's great.
I don't have that, thankfully. I just have the wear and tear of age.
Yeah.
I'm it hasn't hit my knees yet. That's what's gonna go next.
Yeah, yeah, I can feel my knee makes a weird crunchy noise when it moves.
Oh,
So
I've had the clicking for a while. It just hasn't translated to pain yet.
yeah, yeah, mine's gotten stiffness. So that'll be a fun thing to deal with. The
Welcome
maelstrom.
to the aging podcast.
Yeah, the maelstrom of our bodies is going on. And speaking of maelstrom, we're talking about the comments from the episode Maelstrom
I
this
was
week.
actually going to ask you, are you only going to do comments on that one, or are you going to do it from the last two
I
since we
could do the
didn't?
last two, but I didn't look at the one beforehand, so I could just kind of I can take a
Um,
look and just hope for the best here. Let's just see.
so, for any of you folks who had really insightful comments that you left on Dirty Hands, fuck you, I guess.
Yeah,
That's the approach we're taking here today. To hell with
where
you.
yeah, to hell
Jesse
with you.
doesn't care.
I don't give a goddamn about that. That is not the episode I was looking for. Where is it? Let's see. Dirty Hands. Here they are. All right. Well, I will take a look and we will. I'm just gonna read random ones and hope they're good. So we'll see. Um, Regarding Baltar's accent, he said he started retraining his accent in 10 and left at 18. So
Okay,
that's
so
worth that.
we were kind of both right.
Yes. Let's see. I'm just gonna go in through here. My immediate thought was the colonies don't have any better leftist theory, but I guess anything written before the attack wouldn't be as relevant to the specific situation on the fleet. Yeah, there's like, is there like Karl Marx? Was there a colonial Karl Marx?
Well, even if there was, how many of those writings are preserved? Like we already know that there's a very small selection of preserved writings. It's like the holy texts, and Rosalind has her trashy novels, and like maybe some lawyers have their reference shit, and that's about it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, here's a good one, and this will actually tie back into the Star Trek cruise. Matieval? Apologies if I said your name wrong. The show is not as left-wing as people remember, or as left-wing as the show thinks it is. Even with Zarek, they presented these interesting ideas to do with labor and class and the economics of the fleet, but through a shady character who's a bit of a thug with ulterior motives. The same thing with everything undercut by Baltar. Babylon 5, with this rather liberal ending and by any means necessary, was more left-wing than this. So
Yeah.
I very much agree, and it was interesting because I'm gonna call out my friend. Apologies, Dr. Aaron. But we were having drinks on the cruise, and she brought up For All Mankind, which is Ronald D. Moore's current show.
Yeah.
Um, and she brought up her problems with that show and how it like basically did an anti-union storyline in a Elon Musk sort of like, hey, we all need to get behind the capitalist guy, and the Elon Musks of the world will eventually help us all, sort of thing. Like, yeah, not great. Season 4 sucks. And she was mentioning that, and I brought up this episode, Dirty Hands, and I said, oh yeah, I think that that's a kind of regular thing for Ronald D. Moore we've been having with Battlestar Galactica. And Dr. Aaron's been on the show, so we all know she's a big Battlestar Galactica fan, but she pushed back and was like, well, I think of the time it was fairly like progressive. I'm like, yes. So, and I will give it like some of the stuff that directly deals with like the Bush era of it all, like the 9/11 stuff, aged decently so.
There are aspects of it that are sure. This aspect, no.
No.
Like especially now in hindsight, since the commenter brought up Zarek, like you're using Baltar of all people to introduce
Mm-hmm.
notions of like the workers' control of things, etc. When Zarek's right fucking there.
Yeah. Yeah. Zarek should have been the one, and he kind of did in season one, but again, it's not really delved into. He kind of just like gestures at it at one point,
Yeah,
way back
which
when.
unfortunately, since neither the show nor he really come back to the stuff that he brought up, except for now to have it turn into a weird Baltar worship thing. We'll get to that, but um, I am forced to conclude that Zarek's angle on that was simply for political disruption, and he didn't actually care.
Yeah.
I'm forced to conclude that because if he cared, he'd have brought it up again.
Yeah. And like there's nothing like I don't not buy that someone like Baltar would use populist rhetoric. Like again, you could point to someone like Elon Musk does a similar thing. Like Elon Musk does use populist like, "Hey, I'm fighting for the regular guy against the elites in Washington." Or like Trump did that. A lot of people have done that. So
Yeah.
it's not completely outside the realm of believability that you do that, but by having him be the only one to present that idea, um and like and no one else sort of presenting another counterbalance to it and just sort of crediting it to him. Like even Callie in the episode kind of presents
Yeah.
it herself from her point of view, but then still credits it to Baltar.
You know what would have helped? To
Hmm.
have somebody like maybe one of the knuckle draggers who's been around for a while, not Callie, I don't think, but like somebody else be like, I've been saying this shit to you people for years, but you only listen to it now that it's this asshole saying it. Something like that would have gone a long way.
Yeah, it really would have. It really would have. So, alas, it's the thing that I'm having with this show that I think my big problem with it is like it gets really close in a lot of ways, in some senses, and then just oddly swerves because of the like I guess liberalism would be maybe the best like word for it because I'm thinking of like the end of the episode of Dirty Hands where it just sort of went like you were civil, you were the civil one who like spoke to us like on an even-handed tone, and that's sort of that liberal like we can work things out with just good honest debate in the marketplace of
Well,
ideas sort of thing.
something that's going to come up in this episode we're talking about today. The show clearly comes from a core base assumption that the system is good and works.
Yes,
And
and
if the
like
system
may
is
may
fa-
may break a level a little bit, but
yeah, if the system is faltering, it's because people aren't doing the system correctly.
mm-hmm. Whereas, like, which is frustrating because we make the comparison to Babylon 5, because Babylon 5 ultimately did, at the end of its show, kind of have this hopeful bent in the trust of the system, in that, like, oh, we're going to create this, I forget what it was, but the Sheridan created Galactic Federation sort of thing that they were
Yeah.
building at the end, which is very much built on sort of like liberal democratic ideals. It's very
Yeah. And
similar.
like Sheridan did have faith in the system, but he also still knew enough to go, okay, we do still need a new system, though.
Yes. And the show was also not starry-eyed about like how the system could ultimately fall into fascism very clearly. Whereas Battlestar Galactica constantly goes like it toes right up to the line of like Adama's gonna do a military coup. Roslyn is a union breaker. Like, yeah, they'll show them doing this, but then because they don't want those characters to be too bad, they'll ultimately still be like, well, she'll if you say it right to her, she'll ultimately do the right thing, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like so it's like it understands these dynamics but then like forces its hand into being like but the system will work if the right people are in power, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. It it has it has the feel of the liberal person with leftist friends
hmm.
who goes like, okay, I get what you're saying, but
Yes,
that is the tone of this show.
this show is it's made for Ezra Klein, let me put it that way.
Oh, ooh.
Yeah,
If folks don't know who that is, I'm not going to tell you. You don't need to
I
know.
did a
But let,
video
let,
on him, so
let,
yeah.
let me just assure you, not a compliment.
Yes, definitely not a compliment. But yeah, this show feels very made for Ezra Klein. And Babylon 5, while still ultimately like upholding like liberal democracy is the best system, its kind of ideology is more like Yeah, well, liberal democracy isn't great, but it's the best system we got, and we should try to make it work. And as an anarchist, I would be like, you can dream bigger, darling.
Yeah.
But I at least appreciate the realism of looking at the system that the show brings. So,
Yeah. And I would say that you could much more fairly defend Babylon 5 as like a progressive for its time
hmm
in a fair number of ways. And a
Oh,
lot
I
of the
think
stuff
very much so. Yes.
and a lot of the stuff that is not especially progressive, at least looking at it now, is stuff that was just unexamined at the time, and I'm not sure how realistic it would have been to be much more. This show feels a lot more like the only thing holding it back is itself.
hmm
It doesn't feel like it doesn't know better. It feels like it does know better, but it thinks it knows better than to know better.
Yes. 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 So yeah, it's an interesting comparison. And maybe there might be a video in me comparing Battlestar Galactica to Babylon 5. It'd be an interesting sort of connection there.
Yeah.
And you can also just look at the Ronald D. Moore aspect of it all and connect it to For All Mankind, which does a similar thing. I think For All Mankind is better, but it really tips its hand in for the season. Let me put it this way. The first three seasons I think are good, but I think those first three seasons work because the show does like a decade at a time. It's an alternate history, so it starts in I think like the 60s with the Russians getting to the moon first. And so
Yeah.
each season is a decade, like 60s, 70s, 80s. And so like the politics that it's dealing with is like looking back and being like, well, what if the politics of the 60s were more progressive? And you're like, okay, this is good. Like, this is like the 60s are more progressive, the 70s more
Yeah.
progressive than they were, 80s
Okay.
more progressive than they were. But then you get to the new seasons, like season 4 and 5, where it's like, oh, it's the 90s, and your version of progressive is really regressive. And not looking forward to season 5, which is about to come out, which is, I think, the 2000s. And I'm gonna be like, oh, your version of progressive is Reagan Republican progressive. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think that's why it kind of got away with it for so long, and then kind of has tipped its hand as it gets more close to modern day politics. Well, let's go over to Maelstrom's comments real quickly. Let's see. Where? Oh God, there was a comment that I liked and I had, but now I lost it. Oh yeah, here. Romler says the fans were naturally very skeptical that Starbuck was really being killed off here after so much had been built up around her super specialness, to which Ron Moore and others could only keep insisting it was real. And Katie Sackhoff gave an interview where she noticeably was pissed off about it. Even the rest of the actors were so angry that they threatened to all quit, and Moore just barely managed to take care of that. I mentioned that last step when we did the episode with both Edward James Olmos and Rosalind's actor. I'm blanking on it. Mary McDowell. Mary
Yeah.
McDowell? Yeah, I had it right. Both like going into Ronald D. Moore's office and being like, "Are you insane?" But and continue Romler's comment. I've actually reached a point where I think it would be awesome and kind of hilarious if I again saw a character built up like this just randomly die, and it turns out all the prophecy stuff was just bullshit. I would have liked that. That it would be very very fun.
And
So
like, here's the thing. It would be a ballsy thing because it would piss off, like, especially if you did it a couple seasons into a show, it would piss off so many of your fans. But wow, would I respect the hell out of it. The show just basically going, no. Like, yeah, I know people said it was a prophecy, but prophecies aren't real. The
yeah,
fuck's wrong with you?
yeah. No, I kind of
Like, it would be bold. It would be a very foolish thing to
it.
do. It would be very much shooting yourself in the foot with your own fan base, I suspect. But
Yeah.
I'd respect the shit out of it.
I kind of want to do that. We were also talking about Chosen Ones before, and I will say I brought up Harry Potter as a good example, but we argued about that. I will also say the other version of a Chosen One narrative that I really really like is Dark Souls. Because if you haven't spoilers for Dark Souls if you haven't played the original Dark Souls game, and I'll kind of give a this is going to vastly oversimplify a very complex mythology. But the game is basically you wake up and you are told you are the I forget what the name of it, but basically a hero who can light the flame because the world is decaying and crumbling and dying, and as you go through the world, you see how it's decaying, crumbling, and dying, and there is a fire that the Great Lord of Fire is trying to keep going. And it keeps sacrificing people to it to keep the darkness at bay. And you're basically told like you need to kill all these monsters, get strong enough so that you can sacrifice yourself at the fire to keep this world from dying. Um, and so the whole game is like, don't quit. Keep going, even if it feels like it's hard. This is why Dark Souls is so hard. It's like, even if it's hard, you got to keep fighting to get through. And then you get to the end of the game, and one of the things that you can find, you may not find it, but there's a guy that you can find in the game that's hidden who is like, oh yeah, all of that is bullshit. He's just lying to hold on to his power. The guy who's holding on to the flame, made this mythology just so he could hold on to this power. And the end of the game, you have the choice, if you want to sacrifice yourself to the flame or not, and just let the world die and end. And actually, in my opinion, the good ending is to just let the world die and end and let something new come, even though it's very scary and an age of dark. And that is they thing of like, you are the chosen one, but you realize the chosen one story is just bullshit to get people to keep sacrificing themselves for this thing. And the end of the third game, spoilers for the third game, is the final boss of that game is an amalgamation of all the heroes who have continually thrown themselves on the fire to keep the world going, including your hero from the first game. So it's an
So
interesting.
canonically, you
Yes.
you kept it going.
Canonically, in the third game, you kept it going. Our first game, you kept it going, and then canonically, in the third game, you end it. You choose to end it. So, yeah.
It's a chosen one's story that I do kind of like a little bit,
Yeah, go for it.
at least for that specific aspect. Willow,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
because the thing about Willow is the chosen one is the baby, Alora Dannon, but she didn't do anything. She's a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like basically her existing at all just starts the domino chain that results in Bavmorda, the evil witch queen, being defeated and killed. But the baby herself doesn't do a fucking thing.
The baby
All
chosen one is just a MacGuffin in that case.
Yeah, all like her existing does again, it does legitimately. You can track the series of events that happens from her birth that results in this outcome, but she didn't do anything. She doesn't have to. That's not the point.
Yeah, yeah.
And I kind of love that. Now, like if you read the novels that came after, like they follow her as an adult, and I'm like, I never read them because I don't fucking care. Because I like that idea of like your chosen one is a MacGuffin. All that matters is that people care, not what she does.
I also will say I did like the Willow sequel show. I thought was fun, even though it's not on Disney Plus anymore because they wrote it off
Nope.
for tax shit. But it was good. I did enjoy that show. It was like it was nothing to like write home about too much, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. So
I think I did 3 episodes of it, and then I just didn't come back to it. I switched to something else.
it's fine. Like I said, it's nothing to write home about. But I watched all of it. I was like, yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that. It was an enjoyable show. Unfortunately, got a lot of bullshit online from the regular crowd.
Naturally.
But generally, I thought it was fine. I thought it was like, again, if you were interested in it, I thought, yeah, it could have better. There are worse ways to use your time. And speaking of worse ways to use your time,
Oh no, you don't get to move on from the comments just yet.
okay,
I have one I need to read.
go for it.
So from I'm Big Dave, I don't normally engage in conspiracy theories, but I'm going to start one. Whispers, I don't think there is a Ferengi video.
There is a Ferengi video. It will come out. It will come out next month now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also have to change it now too because there's some Ferengis that showed up in Starfleet Academy. So I have to add a little bit for that. They're just in the background, but I do in the video that if you saw it on Patreon and Nebula, I talk about the Ferengis that appear in the background of Star Trek Discovery and a few others. And so it'll feel out of place if I don't mention Starfleet Academy doing a similar thing because Academy is slightly different than what Discovery does. So, yeah.
You took long enough to release it that a whole new show came out.
Indeed. Oh, well, one day we will reach that video and we will come to that crossroads when we come to it. And speaking of, we are talking about the penultimate episode of season 3 of Battlestar Galactica titled Crossroads. Technically online, it is a part 1 of 2, but it's technically this episode is just called Crossroads and
See,
then next episode is called Crossroads Part 2. It's weird.
I was gonna ask, did these two originally air as one episode?
No, I double
That's
checked that
weird
too.
as shit then, because the point at which this one ends is a bizarre place to just stop and would make so much more sense if it was just the halfway mark of something they cut in half.
I would be. I would not be surprised if I think I even remember reading somewhere. This is me talking my ass, but I do remember vaguely remember this. I do think it was intended to be aired as one big finale, but then they cut it in two. So,
Okay.
so yeah, this episode's just titled Crossroads, and then next episode is Crossroads Part Two. And I would not be shocked if it was intended to be a two-parter, or to
It
be one
it
episode
de-
that was split in two.
it definitely feels like it because like
But they did air a week apart. I did double check that though.
yeah, like it's hard to pinpoint, but like you can tell a difference between a single story that's been cut in half and something that was designed to be two parts taken separately.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, okay, yeah, the story's not done after part one, but we still kind of had like a normal arc of what you'd expect of an episode and ended at a point that'll be picked up later. When it feels like you're just stopping mid arc, that's when you've got something that was just sliced straight in half.
Yeah, especially since this episode introduces a couple mystery box things that I actually think are knowing where it goes, I actually think is better if you just pay it off the first time you watch it instead of leaving it hanging and speculating for a week. But we'll get
Yeah.
there. So, we will go into that. But speaking of mystery box stuff, let's get into our recap. We start off in Vera's favorite setting, the Opera House of Prophecy. Uh,
My note is vision bullshit.
Yes. We have Rosalind going through the opera house. She sees Hera running through it. As she runs through it, she sees Athena across the way from her, and they both chase after Hera, trying to get to her first. But who grabs Hera first? None other than Caprica 6, who is there. And that is the dream. Rosalind wakes up. So.
Uh-huh.
We then cut to Adama and Gata talking to each other. Gata sort of giving an update on the situation. He said it says they have about a dozen FTL jumps until they reach the Nebula, which is the next stop on the Easter egg hunt to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Go to next location.
yes, exactly. They have had no Cylon sightings in a while, which, has Adama sort of a little, just like, maybe we should be a little bit more extra cautious about that. So he tells Gata to leave the Raptor that they have trailing the fleet. They basically, the whole fleet jumps away and they leave a Raptor that sticks around for a few hours to see if anyone's coming after them. He says to have it wait an extra 6 hours from now on. So. Then we cut over to, speaking of mysterious stuff, Ty is in the bar and he is sort of fiddling with the radio, and through the static there's a strange, mysterious sort of song that is playing, and Ty can kind of hear it, and then Anders says, "Oh, you almost had it," and he notices it too, but presumably no one else does. So it's just Ty and Anders seem to notice this little tune.
Yeah. So first thing, the design of this radio threw me the fuck off real bad because it just looks like they pulled an antique AM radio from the 60s.
Probably, yeah.
It just straight up does. And it's one of those cases where, like, again, look, I get that like a lot of this stuff is just it has parallel to Earth stuff, like the model ship and all this other stuff. But then there's also a bunch of little touches, like there being no corners on the freaking paper. So in theory, like, you care just enough that, like, and you've done just enough that just dropping what looks like a 1960s prop that you just picked up at a yard sale somewhere is fucking jarring. I was like, what the fuck is that? Because it didn't just look old in a general sense. It looked old in a very specific sense that doesn't track in my head with what this show is, or at least what I think it is. Who the fuck knows what it's going to be by the time it's done?
Mm-hmm.
Your smile isn't helping. And also, like, my note is just, what is he trying to tune into? Because here's the thing, like, I know radio broadcasts are a thing within, like, the fleet because we've seen announcements done, etc. I don't think I've ever seen anyone tuning into anything before.
I mean, that I can buy. That I can buy, that there's like maybe a few radio stations, like maybe each there's like got to be a few DJs on different ships playing different things, and I'm assuming
You
it's going
don't
to
get to
be.
just introduce this shit 3 seasons in,
I
though.
don't know.
Like,
I think I
again,
will.
especially not with an antiquated prop like this. The whole thing just threw me the fuck off.
Okay, fair enough. I will play defense on this one, devil's advocate. I don't mind that aspect. I mean, the prop I'll give you, yes. The tuning in thing is like I don't know. We've seen enough of like people listening over the radio to like news broadcasts and like people listening to stuff that I could conceivably buy that he would be tuning into a thing. Like that part didn't throw me. The prop looking just like an antique radio, I'll give you that, but the tuning in thing I think is fine.
Well, I mean, like, part of the thing was I didn't know what the hell he was trying to tune into because it was basically all static except for that one tiny hint of a song that you mentioned.
Hmm.
So part of what I was confused is what is he even trying to pick up?
Well,
Like,
that's the question, isn't it?
not in an intriguing way, in a frustrating way.
Oh, see, I love this shit. This is weird, mysterious shit that I love, especially as it goes throughout the episode. So, I love this shit. I'm gonna disagree with you heavily. This sort of weird, mysterious nonsense bullshit is things that I love. And in fact, without spoiling too much, this specific one is one that sticks in my brain quite well and has lasted with me quite a while from this specific two-parter. So,
Okay.
yep.
I mean, I'm just assuming it's a silent sleeper agent coded signal thing. I'm just
I haven't
assuming
said
that
anything.
at this point.
We'll
And
find
like
out.
I did note it, I both noticed when I watched it, and I did notice you pointed out as well. Both he and Anders heard it, so I'm not going to make the call that he and Anders are both Cylons. I am going to say if either of them are, I'm now not going to be surprised.
I'm not saying anything. We then cut over to Tori and Tori talking to the prosecutor in Baltar's case over on Colonial One. And Tori sort of saying, well, the president wants Baltar charged with genocide. And brings up, well, the president saw Baltar with a six on way back on Caprica. And the prosecutor's like, I'm not going to charge him with drug-induced visions, and sort of pushes back against Tori of like, this is a courtesy briefing, not a strategy meeting. I do serve at the pleasure of the president, so if she wants to fire me, she can, if there are any lawyers that will take up the job. So,
Yeah, I mean, the specific thing that she said that I wrote down that I liked is like, I'm going to charge him with what I think I can prove, which is, in theory, what a non-corrupt prosecutorial system should be doing. And funnily enough, even in a corrupt one like we currently have, is still a problem that, say, our fascist president is dealing with, because all of his attempts to federally prosecute his enemies have hit the simple roadblock of you don't have any evidence for the things you want to charge them with, and they just all get thrown out.
So yeah, that felt actually real to me. I did like that scene quite a bit, and I did like that lawyer.
Yeah.
Like showed a lot of integrity of that lawyer, and gave me a good sense of who she is for how limited screen time she has, which I think is
Yeah, I
interesting.
do like that she's not being painted as the asshole, given that we are given a lot more just by virtue of who has more time spent on them. Like, she's the prosecution, but on the other side of the table is Lee, Baltar, and everyone's new favorite character,
Romo.
Romo. So, like, just by virtue of who's on the opposite side, our inclination as the audience is going to be to root for them. So it would have been easy to make her the asshole, and they aren't, and I appreciate that.
Yep. And arguably, she's probably got more integrity than all the other characters on the other side combined, given where this goes. And so, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, we then have Baltar in his cell, and there's a woman who comes in, and she sort of looks like, oh, she has a media representative badge, and he's like, I don't want to talk to the media, but turns out this lady has presumably, though we never get official confirmation of this, but presumably lied about her job to get in because she says, here's a picture of my son. Will you bless him? Please bless my son. And Baltar's like, nope, I'm not a god. I'm not going to do that. And asks her to leave. And yeah, so it's clearly someone who is like hero worshiping or even god worshiping Baltar as some sort of religious figure.
Yeah.
So, yep.
I'm actually going to push back on your assumption. I assumed that the credentials were real. It's just not why she was there.
That's also possible as well.
So I just wrote down, "Oh fucking don't." I didn't I didn't like it when there were people treating Rosalind like she was a prophet. I'm not gonna like it when they do it with Baltar. And I understand, like
I'm gonna say, yeah.
the entire fucking show is leaning increasingly in a religion commentary direction, and I like it less every step that it takes in that direction. So, just telling you.
Yeah, I will also say, I mean, it's not necessarily religious coded, but the hero worship and cult of personality around people like Baltar, aka Elon Musk, is not real. So it's
I'm not.
not necessarily in a bless my child sort of way, but
I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, if somebody had snuck in and been like, is there a message you want me to pass on to the people who believe in you, or like something like that, I could have gone with that way more. It honestly feels lazy to shorthand it as "bless my child."
mm-hmm. Fair. Well, head six after the lady sort of leaves, and Baltar sort of says, "Yeah, I'll look into it, possibly," but he's sort of like very dismissive of this. And head six says, "You think they're crazy? I think the woman can see you more than you see yourself. Even if they kill you, your name will live on forever." So he's got
Well,
some
also, let's
martyr.
not gloss over the fact this woman isn't the first one, because
Mm-hmm.
like um head six asks him, like, how many is that? He says that's five.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, that's the ones who have actually gotten here. There's also 20 some odd letters you've been sent. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a thing.
Yep.
This is not a rando lady. This is a thing.
Yep. Well, we then cut to racetrack in the trailing Raptor, and there's there to wait 12 hours, so they start playing cards. Then we get over to the opening statements of Baltar's trial. And the prosecutor sort of makes this big opening statement around how do we measure loss? We measure it in the faces of the dead that harm our memory. We measure it in our faces, the ones that we see in the mirror every day because it's marked each of us. The scale of it becomes too hard to absorb. And when that happens, we use numbers. And then she sort of draws attention to the numbers of there were 44,000 people that were alive when they settled on New Caprica, and there were only 38,000 when they escaped. So the missing number around 5,000, or the missing number of people is 5,197 who were killed, left behind, or simply disappeared. That she sort of is trying to correlate with Baltar's responsibility, that he is in part responsible for that many people dying. Um, the citizens of the 12 colonies trusted Baltar, and we got a reign of terror instead. We instead of governance, we got tyranny. Instead of justice, we got oppression. Instead of a president, we got a murderer who must hold him accountable. Baltar is not a victim. He chose to side with the silence and sought the death of his fellow citizens and must pay the ultimate price. Was her basic argument.
Yep.
Which I thought was pretty strong. I liked the use of the numbers, which feels like very,
Well, there
tie.
was a whole build up to the numbers that I really liked,
Mm-hmm.
because she said, how do we quantify loss? Well, when it gets to such a large amount that we can't fit it all in our heads, we turn to numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But when those numbers get so great, we have to invert them, stop counting the dead, and start counting who's still left. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she built up to that very well.
Yeah, no, it's a very strong opening argument. It was a way to sort of lay that number right at Baltar's feet. Um, but then Romo goes up and he gives his opening statement, and he kind of goes, "Well, we'd like to change our plea to guilty. Because surely my client is guilty. He's a traitor and a killer, no better than a silent. We should just throw him out the like. And what do we do with traitors? Someone yells, throw them out the airlock, and he's like, yes, that's right. This man sold us out to our enemy. This man is our enemy, and there's the one thing that is good and just in war. It's slaughtering our enemy, getting righteous payback. So what are we waiting for? Let's just kill him now." And then he's sort of obviously he's turning this on its head. He's like, would be easier, wouldn't it? Just justice of the mob. And he points to Rosalind, especially her, who happens to be coming in at this exact moment.
Which
Uh,
is timing is odd.
yeah, it's a very odd timing. And he sort of points to her and she says she's been wanting this for over a year since he beat her in a free and fair election and enact her revenge. And he sort of argues Balthar's only crime is bowing to the inevitable. He saved the lives of the people on New Caprica, where Rosin would have sent us to our death, victims of a battle we had no hope of winning. I don't know about you. I'm glad she wasn't president when the Silence arrived and she and said surrender or die. And I believe I owe my life to Baltar and the decision he made, and so does Laura Roslin.
All right. So two things about this. I really wanted for one of the judges after he finished to go, okay, so you are changing your plea to guilty,
Guilty.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Officially,
yeah,
yes. Just to undercut the shit out of
yeah.
that whole move. I kind of wanted somebody to do that. But the other thing is, it's interesting. Now, what I'm about to say is not like a criticism of the show because I don't know. I'm not sure yet. At least it isn't clear to me whether or not the show agrees with him with the positions that he's taking. And from a legal defense standpoint, it might be the best he's got, to be
Mm.
honest. But I do think it is worth bringing up because it came up in some of our conversations with Babylon 5 in a very positive way. Because one of the things that show was really good at, especially with Sheridan, but also some of the other characters, is realizing that just because you did the best thing under the circumstances and any other option would have been worse does not mean you are not still responsible for the bad things that happen because of your choice.
Hmm.
Like the characters really grapple with, like, the characters never in that show never fall back on, well, it was the best choice I could have made, and then it just clears their conscience. Like they still feel every loss that happened, every bad thing they had to do for the path they chose, even if they can look at it and go, that was the best I could have done. But nobody uses that as a cop out to be like, therefore, I'm not responsible for the bad consequences that happened because of my choice. And that was something I really appreciated about that. And I was just reminded of that as this comes up. And again, I'm not going to say whether or not this show is doing it better or worse because at present, I don't know if the show agrees with Romo or not.
Yeah, I think Boltar would agree.
Oh, Baltar does for sure, but Baltar's a piece of shit.
Yes, yes.
So
We shall see. We shall see how it goes. I honestly don't remember. I seem to remember that the show is always fairly, if it does anything right, it's always fairly clear of like Boltar is a piece of shit and it should not be viewed as a hero in any way, and it's a bad thing to view him as a hero. And it like things are complicated around him at times, but he himself is a piece of shit. So I think that's my memory. We'll see.
we will see. We'll see.
But I do really like this opening one. What I like about this opening, just to kind of say my part on it, is I like him kind of trying to cut off the head of the biggest problem he's going to face because everyone is kind of wanting to get Baltar. So at least drawing attention to it instead of trying to skate around, I think is the strongest move there. Just
Yeah,
to undercut
not
it.
not pretending like the whole room doesn't want to kill his client.
Yes, and him making this move of like, well, he did make the hard choice to surrender, and it's something that we would have died if we had Rosalind. So yes, it is. It's not something I necessarily agree with, but it is one that I think is a strong argument from him to make in this opening. So
Yeah, again, I think it might actually be one of the only angles he's got.
yes,
But broadly speaking, it sounds like he's trying to take an extenuating circumstances angle, which is unlikely to get Baltar acquitted, but may well get him not sentenced to death.
yeah. Anyways, over on the trailing Raptor, they get a Dreadus contact, and there's 5 base ships trailing right behind them. So they manage to jump away right before the missile is about
Right
to hit
before
them.
the missile zooms right with, oh, the classic. God, it feels so weird that I praised that the first time it happened. It's just so fucking standard
I'll give it
now.
at least something that at least they showed it from the missile's perspective this time, which was new. So,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Um, Adama sort of gets this information and is talking to I think Rosalind and Ty, and he says, "Well, we need to search for tracking devices." And Rosalind says, "We'll ask Caprica 6." Um, and Ty sort of is against, "Oh, we're gonna ask Balthar's girlfriend. Do you think she wants to stick her neck out for this?" And Rosalind's like, "Well, if she probably was willing to help us because she doesn't want Hera to go back to the Cylons." And she has a sort of feeling about it, and so she kind of gets frustrated and saying it could at Ty sort of being very much against it and saying, well, it couldn't hurt to ask. And so Adama says, ask it about the because he uses
Well, like she says, couldn't hurt to ask, but she also kind of does this, look, just do it, and kind of walks away.
yes,
Like there's this sense of, I'm just going to go with flustered.
mm, yes, Well, and while she does walk away flustered, Adama goes over to talk to her and seemingly comfort her. And Apollo sort of watches, and then he goes down and he sniffs her tea. And that's all he sort of does, but he sort of gets a whiff of her tea. So, um, then we have Ty going to speak to Caprica 6. And he sort of asks about the tracking device, and he says, "Well, I'm here. I'm supposed to ask about the tracking device, and I'm going to listen to your lies." He sort of presumes that she's not going to actually help them.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "We discovered your fuel ship had a unique radiation signature a while back after our last battle, and they must have found a way to track it." And he sort of asks, "Well, what else do you know?" And then Head Boltar shows up and starts speaking to Caprica 6. And he says, "Don't get intimidated. He's using you to exercise his own pain. He lost someone close to him. But you know how that feels, don't you?" And then Caprica 6 uses this information. It says, "I know about your loss. It hurts, doesn't it? You wonder how you can even survive." And you can see that Ty is obviously rattled by this because he's thinking of Ellen. And he sort of denies it. "I don't know what you're talking about." And Head Balder says, "Well, she was his world. He only realized it after she was gone." And sort of Caprica 6 prods even more, saying, "Did you know how much she meant to you? Did you wait to tell her until after she was gone? You made her think she was a burden, a millstone around your neck. That's what you humans always destroy the ones who love you." And then Ty punches her right in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Which initially I didn't like. I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna do more of that." But then I did like at least that she punches him right the fuck back. So
Yep.
I appreciated that as well. So yeah. Um yeah, and then he says shackle this thing. So yeah, so basically pushing Ty's trauma button about Ellen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know, man. I hate that am now having to give weight to the idea that Head Baltar is legitimately giving her information she wouldn't otherwise have, because I much preferred the interpretation that it was just the voice in her head pulling together the things that she herself was already noticing.
Mm-hmm.
I would have preferred that. I don't get to
I
have it.
mean,
Whatever.
I was thinking about this. Theoretically, she could, because I actually was thinking about this after watching this. Like, theoretically, she could know this information. We never see her interacting with Ty or Ellen, but she was in the leadership on New Caprica, as we saw. She was involved in the government, and Ty was the head of the insurgency. So it is quite possible that she was at least aware of Ellen's existence. So let me put it this way: this it is plausible that this is information she would have in the back of her head. So.
Here's the way that I'm going to put this. The only interest I really have in either head character at this point is for interactions that feel like they inform the character.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that is like, oh, it's the will of God, or oh, here's some information about the person you talk to. Boy, I don't fucking care.
Mm.
I don't fucking care, man. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm 95% sure I'm gonna hate it.
Fair. I see. This is stuff that I personally do like, but I do agree it's been dragged out way too long. It should have been a
Yeah.
thing that was like more directly confronted in like season 2. So yeah. All right. We then have Ty is on the stand at Baltar's trial. And he's sort of being questioned by the prosecutor, and asking about his time in the insurgency. You know, it's like, "Did you ever hear of Baltar doing anything to stand up to the Cylons?" And Ty's like, "Nope, we never lifted a finger. Ellen did more." To which I believe Romo or no, Baltar notices that Ty is drunk because like he's drunk and everyone kind of is aware.
Yeah.
Um, and prosecutor tries to smooth this over a little bit, saying like, "Oh, Ellen, yes, another victim." Um, so then she sort of like ends questioning after this. Then Romo sort of stands up and he asks about Ellen, and he says no one knows what happened to her. Everyone sort of presumes she died in the Exodus.
Well,
Um,
it's actually worth noting before he gets up and starts talking, like he leans over to Lee and Baltar, like, do you know what happened to his wife? And neither of them do.
yes, that and so that's where he starts bringing this up, and he sort of starts asking. Sorry, that's what my note meant is that he leaned over to Apollo because I was like, this feels out of order. So, anyways, that is said. Then he stands up and starts saying like, "Well, you consider Baltar a traitor," and Ty adds, "and a coward and a mass murderer." And he sort of asks Ty, "Well, you planned a suicide bombing that was targeting Baltar, but it also led to the deaths of 33 other humans, and you were willing to kill 33 other people just for a chance to kill Baltar? And Ty says they were all traitors, but yes, he was the intended target. And then he switches gears to what happened to your wife. The prosecutor objects to this, but Romo points out the door was opened by the prosecutor because it came up. So he's allowed a little bit of leeway. I'll
I
allow
mean,
it, counselor. Sort of,
technically the door was opened by Ty
yes.
himself, which I don't know if that counts, but
It does because the counselor did a follow-up question about it.
yeah.
That would be the rule because she said, "Oh, Ellen, another 10 victims," so she did ask. So it is something to follow up on. Worth in legal terms, yes, that would be legally allowed.
All right.
Yeah. Um. Anyways, so he starts following up on this. Adama tries to shut it down, but again, they say, "I'll allow it, counselor," doing the very stereotypical thing. You
Yeah.
have a short lease, counselor, but you go forth. They don't say that part, but that's always what they kind of say. Anyways, he sort of points out, well, your wife was collaborating openly. She worked for them, and Ty's like, well, she was faking it. And he's like, well, oh, when Balthar wasn't faking it, essentially. And then he sort of says, have you been drinking today, Colonel? And he sort of says, I had a drink. I haven't been drinking. Um, and then during this, as Romo is talking, Ty again hears the song and seems to be kind of disorientated by it. And he says, do you hear that? They're playing music in here now, and no one else can really hear it. And they sort of chalk it
Mhm.
up to him being drunk. Yeah, so Romo points out, it's like, well, Balthar didn't order the death of your wife. Somebody else did, who killed Ellen. And Ty admits to it. He says, I did. And kind of gives a look to Adama. He's clearly, again, very upset by saying this. Like, she was giving information to the Cylons. A lot of good men died. She was my wife, and it was my responsibility. She said she did it for me to save me, so I killed her. All because of that thing over there, because Balthar didn't have the guts to stand up to the Cylons. Because he handed our fates over to the Cylons, I had to kill my Ellen. Um, and then Roma says, so Balthar made you kill your wife. That's why you hate him and would say anything to see him die. And Ty says, yes, I would do anything, say anything to see that man die a painful death. And Romo says, no further questions.
Yeah.
So Ty has been fully kind of discredited kind of as a witness through all of this.
Yeah. The scene, it was doing okay, but then like it kind of pulls I know that the excuse is that he's drunk and so he's going to say something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. I still don't really like the thing where it wasn't even really a trap that
Mm-hmm.
Romo sent because nothing about the questions that he asked really required Ty to answer, yes, I would do anything, say anything to make him pay.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just fucking said that, which I don't know. Again, I get it. He's drunk. I'm not saying there's no reason for it, but I'm saying it was frustrating because it felt like that happened to make up for the fact that Romo's line of questioning was actually not going anywhere. Because the instant Ty brought up the fact that he killed Ellen, he basically revealed a complete moral consistency that traitors have to die. And so what it felt like was that Romo was trying to go for, oh, well, you're making excuses for your wife, but he doesn't get any. But then the instant he's like, well, yeah, and I killed her too, shows a consistency that kind of takes the wind out of what Romo was trying to do. But then Ty just says that shit anyway. And again, it's not that it's inconsistent. It's not that it's out of character. It just frustrates me as a flow of the dialogue and the overall scene.
I I don't mind it as much, mainly because it is not overplayed in the scene. Like if the scene had played it like, oh my gosh, he got him, and this is a big turn. Like if it was played in a very like, yeah, this is a really like they got a win in. I would agree with you on it. But
I
the scene is for me. I'll just to say the scene is underplayed, and so when the scene wraps out, it is uh it is played like yes, Ty like this was a win for Romo, but it's not one that was like oh my gosh, such a great win. It's that like Ty has fully and completely embarrassed himself in front of everybody. It's played like a yeah, this is probably a check in the Romo column, but it's like not super a big win for them. And I think that that's what makes it work for me. That all of this feels consistent with Ty, like that, like the thing that it says, like I would say anything to see him dead. That feels like a thing Ty would say. Even sans the drunk part, but the drunk part certainly helps. Um, and so I think it plays it just right for me to make it work. Where if it had been directed differently, even with the same dialogue, I think it would have not worked.
It doesn't quite work for me, but I will grant it would have been very easy to overdo, to have it turn into the final court scene, freaking A Few Good Men, and Ty like stands up and bangs his fist on the witness stand, and they're like, I don't say anything. Ah,
Yeah.
like they could have done that very easily and they didn't. So while it didn't quite work to me, I will grant you it is downplayed certainly to what I think most things would have done. I will give you that.
What I'll say is this then. Maybe it wasn't the writing was not did not flow super well, but the directing was really well done. It was a really well directed, rough written scene. Maybe is the
Okay.
best way to put it.
Like this came up with stuff with Romo last time where like he had his whole monologue and I was like, I don't know if that's actually well written. He performs the shit out of it. I don't know if that was actually a good speech.
Yeah, it's like the craft people on set, the actors and the directors are doing a bang up job. It's the writing that's failing them a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
I
directed and performed
honestly
fantastically.
I will agree with that. I'll agree with that. Sure.
Yeah, I think that is something we could probably say across the board for the show. Is like directed really
Yeah.
well for the most part, acted amazingly for the most part, writing inconsistent.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, yeah. We then cut to Anders and Tori in the bar. Tori is sort of seeming out of sorts. She sort of tells the bartender, or that he's the guy who's appeared in a bunch of stuff. He was on the like Council of Let's Murder the Traitors way back there at the beginning of the season. I forget his name. He's the bartender. She's like, "Yeah, tell me what you want, and tell me what I want, and surprise me, essentially." And Anders sort of looks over at the radio and sort of is hearing the music a little bit too. And he also looks at Tori, but we don't necessarily know if Tori hears the music or not. But there is a sort of like looking connection between Tori and Anders.
Mm-hmm.
So we then cut to Rosalind is now on the stand. Um, and she was talking, and she basically tells the story of the time when she was sort of taken by the Cylons to be murdered, and says that Baltar was the one who signed our name on the death list. He approved the death list of getting us killed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of placing it at Baltar's feet that he was the one that ordered the execution of the 200 people, including her and Zarek. Um, they then get I believe I think Romo asks for a reprieve or anything like that, but they basically have a break, and they're having a meeting between Baltar, Romo, and Apollo. And Baltar starts saying, "Well, we need to discredit her testimony. She's a fanatic." And Apollo's listening in, and Romo sort of notices like, "You've got something." And Apollo's like, "No, no, no." And Romo's like, "The problem is I'm a good liar and you're not. So let's have it." Um, and Apollo again like keeps denying it, and even Balthar's like, yeah, you are you're hiding something," and he kind of gets insistent about it. And Romo's like, "Shut up." And Romo kind of goes at Apollo and says, "You need to tell us." And like Apollo sort of argues, "Well, I'm here because I believe in this system, and that everyone, just even our piece of shit a client, deserves a fair trial." And Romo says, "Well, if you believe in this system, if you have information, you need to tell us. So either you tell us and like prove your principles, or if you don't, you're just basically showing that you just want to be here to get one over on Dad. So what are you gonna do?" So
Yep. And uh Lee being on a moral high horse just kind of pisses me off on principle at this point.
yeah, I mean, it's again, we've had this thing of like him working as the idealistic, I believe in the system guy, uh, worked better in season one than it is now with
It
his a piece
really
of
doesn't
shit.
work at this point. Too much shit has happened,
Yes.
and he should have grown by now and
Yeah.
hasn't.
Yeah. It's what I find it like it's kind of unclear what the arc is here for me a little bit as well, where it's like the arc that I would like to see. There's two ways you could have taken his arc for over the show of like, oh, the system is faltering, and he being the idealistic young kid is the one who kind of pushes it to stay on track, which is kind of what we got in season one. So, and I'm saying these are the arcs to do that would be consistent. I'm not saying
Uh-huh.
I agree with it, but this would have been a consistent arc for the character at the very least. Of like, he's the idealistic kid who kind of keeps us going, or and maybe this could also happen at the same time, he gets more and more disillusioned but the kind of with the system. But here it's kind of like it's presented as he kind of needs to do the morally weird thing in order to value the system, like in order to trust the system. I don't know, it's just it's an odd argument to me. I don't know.
It's not. I'd see the thing is, it kind of shows where I'm at with this versus you. You still give more credit to the writing on this than I do, broadly speaking, because you're like, I'm trying to map out this arc, and I'm sitting here going, he doesn't have an arc.
Mm-hmm.
He has the lack of an arc. He has an anti-arc. This isn't part of an arc. This is what do we need from him for this scene? Well, he's gonna be the defender of the system for this scene. Cool. Next scene. Like
I'm not disagreeing
you
with you.
are
I'm pointing out what could have been a good arc that they're not doing, and I agree with you.
yeah.
Yeah, which is why
This
it's just inconsistent.
yeah. Like honestly, I keep thinking back to Black Market, which is so weird to me that that's like considered one of the worst episodes because it's easily one of the best for Lee as a character. I just remember thinking like so much should have pivoted about the character after that episode,
Mm-hmm.
and it just doesn't.
It's it's so odd to me. I mean, I'm gonna make another comparison here. We've been making this comparison, but like to Deep Space Nine, which is another show that Ronald D. Moore worked on, and like I look at that show and how that is a very like because Babylon, we look at Babylon 5, and Babylon 5 like zigged a little bit a few times because of actor stuff that happened, like actors
Yeah.
leaving the show and things like that. But for the most part, that was a show that you could clearly tell J. Michael Straczynski had an arc plan for all those characters from the start. Like this character is gonna go on this kind of arc. Like Jakar is gonna go from like the guy who we see as the villain, the oppressed, like oh he's going too far, like out for revenge, oppressed guy, to like no he's actually the one who's sort of fighting to for oppressed people to be seen and heard and trying to heal the wounds and all this stuff. Like that's an arc for that character. Londo going on this arc of like down towards like being a I'm on my high horse, and he sort of gets humbled and realizes like oh this
Yeah.
system he's sort of valor. Anyways, those arcs are also
Becoming
fun.
his worst self, but also can't stop himself from that
Exactly.
path. Yeah.
Exactly. So like that's a show that had very clear delineated arcs for their characters. But a comparison that I would make between Battlestar Galactica would be with Deep Space Nine, which is again the show that Ronald D. Moore worked on, where that show has, I think, really good consistent arcs across its 7 seasons for all of its characters for the most part, and yet none of them were planned out. And yet there was a concerted effort to be like, okay, we're gonna have this character start here in season one. There's a natural arc to go on them with for however long we're gonna have the show go on, and we don't even know what the overarching plot of the show is, but we're gonna keep them on that trajectory. So you have a character like I think a good character just point this out with, who's probably the most overt one, is someone like Odo, who at the beginning of the show, he is this character who is a cop, very much has a cop mentality of like I like the world ordered, I like things to be black and white, I see things very consistently in that view. And then over the course of the show consistently has that black and white viewpoint humbled and sort of have him sort of see things more in gray. And so throughout the show you see him slowly bend on into a more seeing things in less black and white sort of ways in that show. And that's not something that was like there is an arc for his character in the plot, but that is not something that like that was like clearly planned out from the beginning of the show in terms of what beats they're going to hit in what season, but it was a consistent arc that they kept him on throughout the arc of the show. Whereas with Apollo, they clearly didn't have the show planned out and knew where it was going to go from the beginning.
Yeah.
And yet they could have done what they did with something like Odo, and yet they didn't. They kind of have gone all over the place with Apollo and many
Yeah.
characters, but Apollo I think is the most obvious version of that.
I mean, not like I haven't seen DS9, but like what you describe with Odo is what you get when you have a writer or a writer's room who go, okay, maybe we didn't have a full arc planned out for this character, but if this has now happened to him, to this
Mhm.
character, then we need to keep that in mind going forward, and then continuing, and that's how you get a very natural arc where maybe it wasn't planned in advance, but you're not forgetting what happened 6 episodes ago because it's suddenly inconvenient. Like, okay, no, but that happened. So we can't write him the way that we would have before. It's got to be a little different
Yeah.
because he's changed. Shit happens and it changes you.
Yeah. It's why I think Ira Stephen Bear, who was the showrunner of Deep Space Nine, is a better showrunner than Ronald D. Moore. My personal issues with Ira Stephen Bear and his politics aside in real life, but I think he's a much better showrunner overall than Ronald D. Moore. So
Boy, it's frustrating how many times we have to add that as an asterisk to
yeah,
the
unfortunately.
people. That and asterisk scandal acknowledged.
Yeah, exactly. For listeners, just Ira Stephen Bears did a thing like supporting, like saying like, oh, it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
For especially for a writer who I have a lot of I looked up to for a very long time. So it's sad for that to have happened.
I think you can say you have a lot of artistic respect.
Yes, very much so. Anywho, moving on here. So that Apollo sort of gets charged by Romo, being like, "Are you gonna, be? Are you just here to be a petty kid, or are you gonna try and prove the system right?" Um, then we have a good scene that I liked, where Adama is bringing a drunk Ty to his bed. And he sort of like is helping him into bed, and Adama's trying to take care of him, and Ty's just very drunk off his ass. And Adama says, well, hey, I got some good news. We found the radiation signature on the Tilium ship. It's being repaired as we speak. We're 9 jumps away from the nebula. Considering how long it'll take, we're about 3 days out from the next clue on the road to Earth. But then Ty, after Adama gives his info dump, it's like, hey, here's some exposition for you, Ty, just to make you feel better. Ty says, I can't smell her. I can't smell her anymore, Bill. I kept her clothes, but her smell is gone. Um, and then he sort of says to Adama, I'm sorry about all that in court. And he says, there's nothing to be sorry about. And Ty says, I embarrassed you. And Adama says, you're my oldest friend, Saul. You never embarrassed me. And then they hold hands, and I just say, kiss. uh, so yes, this is the old close friends standing together sort of thing, sticking together.
Yeah.
Um, then on the opposite end of the spectrums, we have Lee meeting with his dad, Adama, and Lee is talking to him, and they're sort of talking about this Talion ship, and Lee sort of presents a good point where he says, "Well, we're really close to the nebula, so even if we do fix the radiation leak, the Silence can probably guess where we're going. We should not fix it right away. Send the Tilium ship in another direction, and then have them meet back up with us after they fix it. Then to just throw the Silence off the scent." Adama says, "That's a good idea. I'll take it into consideration." Then Apollo sort of asks, "How's the president? Is she okay? She looked rattled in court yesterday." And Adama's like, "We can't talk about the trial." And Apollo's like, "I wasn't asking about the trial. I was asking about her." And then Adama sort of gets more aggressive and says, "Well, after what you did to Ty, you're the last person I would confide in." Um, and Apollo's like, "I didn't do anything to him." And he says, Adama's like, "Well, you told Romo about Ellen." And um, Apollo says, "I didn't know about Ellen." And Adam's like, "What? Yeah, right." And he's like, "You calling me a liar?" And he says, "I'm calling you a liar and a coward who doesn't have the guts to go after a man himself. He gives the knife to a stranger and lets him stab him in the gut, all for a traitor like Baltar, who doesn't even deserve a trial." And Apollo says, "Are you done?" And Apollo says, and he says, "Yes." And he says, "Well, then so am I." And he resigns his commissions and says, "I will not commission." I said, "I will not serve under a man who questions my integrity." And Adama says, "And I won't have an officer in my command who doesn't have any." So, daddy issues.
Daddy issues. Yeah. And again, the whole thing is being presented to make Lee the righteous one
Yes.
because we know it's true that he did not know about Ellen. And so, simply by virtue of the fact that Adama thinks that he does and is calling him a liar, and we know that that is factually incorrect, it is meant to automatically make us side with Lee the asshole because he is factually right in this case.
Hmm.
And the whole scene, I feel the hand of the author so much to take this situation and force this breaking of the two of them, because it's not like there isn't a reason to splinter their relationship and there aren't ways to do it, but like having it over basically just deciding that this is what Adama's gonna be so pigheaded about that he's gonna call his own son a liar, and that's what breaks this, just feels very contrived. And again, contrived in a way where we are clearly expected to automatically side with Lee, which I'm disinclined to do because I fucking hate him.
Yeah. Which, like, it's interesting because my bigger issue with it is like I actually don't mind the scene, and it feels, and again maybe it's the directing aspect of it over the writing aspect of it again, where it's played less like this is the thing and more played like this is just the straw that broke the camel's back that's been building for a while, which kind of works because we have been seeing like some strain between the two of them over the past few episodes. So it works for me in that regard because it's not overplayed of like, oh, this is the big argument. They're like, fuck you, and this is it. It's just this is the one where Apollo's like, I can't fucking take this anymore. And he's kind of done with it. So that works for me on that level. The thing that the thing that's just interesting to me that I'm just recognizing in myself is going back to that episode Dirty Hands, which was the union episode that we were talking about in the comments a few weeks ago. What really pissed me off about that episode was so good about actually depicting how characters like Dama and Roslyn would wield their power. Like Roslyn basically being like, "Hey, I'm gonna be a union buster. Like, fuck these people. I'm not gonna listen to them if they're being uncivil." And Adama like basically threatening the chief to murder his wife to get his way. And I'm like, that is 100% what these characters would do. And then at the last minute, it kind of goes, but they actually are good at heart. Like Adama was just wanted to defend the military structure, but he was willing to let the chief still form his union for the civilians. He just said, well, we can't have a breakdown in military structure, and it like upholds the system of the military and
Mm-hmm.
also the goodness of Adama the character because he is a good man who is functioning within the system. And we'll get into it even in the next scene, which I actually think is also another moment that has a good moment where Adama will literally go, like, use his power to try to protect his girlfriend, essentially. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he makes an attempt in the scene. And I'm like, that is correct. 100% a character like Adama, with the power he has, would do that in that situation. I just don't trust the show anymore to follow through on that and recognize that, like, you are actively showing it, but then you're going to swerve to just make them look good in a way that we're just making the comparisons that even Babylon 5 wouldn't do. Because, like, it would do a similar thing with the cops, as we've talked about numerous times on this, but
Yeah.
like it would depict it, it wouldn't be so heavy-handed as to be self-aware of like, oh, we're showing it bad, but it would also never be so bad as to be like, and the cops are ultimately still great though. Like it didn't
Yeah.
have that sort of.
Yeah. Babylon 5 was just oblivious to the fact that it was showing police abuse of power completely, whereas this is like, yes, this is a abuse of power. It's totally okay though, which is honestly somehow worse.
Yes, very
Somebody
much.
who doesn't realize what they've done and somebody who does but then excuses it.
Honestly, with Babylon 5, I mean, it works fine in Babylon 5, where it's just they don't recognize it, but it still fits the themes of the show quite well. It's just one of
Yeah.
those like you could have honed in on this a little bit more and actually made your thematic point stronger, but it doesn't run counter to what you're trying to say at any point. Whereas in this show, it does quite often. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
like the thing we keep coming back to is like there was especially lately there was a massive clash between the themes and the points that the show could be making and its determination to hold a certain amount of integrity on its lead characters.
yes. Honestly, and this is something I'm probably gonna end up doing. There's two videos in me that I've been thinking about with Battlestar Galactica. One is just the like, oh, liberalism is ultimately good, like the faith in the system, and I might pair it with this other idea I've been rolling around in my head with Fallout Season 2. Minor spoilers for Fallout Season 2. But this whole idea of like liberal democracy will survive in the post-apocalypse sort of thing, where like if you look at Fallout
Mm,
Season 2, it has a very similar kind of thing going on where it's like, yeah, the post-apocalypse happened and things are bad, but the goodness of liberal democracy will still follow through and win the day, even in the apocalypse. Because it's ultimately the best system and it will prove itself out through the apocalypse, which is the same thing here in Battlestar Galactica. And I'm like, where literally the apocalypse happens and yet the system is still good and it will still survive, rather than anything new coming up. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's a video in me, and I think that this show is showing me how consistently it just is trying so hard to make that narrative work. Like it gets so close to understanding, and then it just again, it's a show made for Ezra Klein, where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're not dumb. Ezra Klein is not a dumb man. I think he understands many of the problems, but then he has just such a almost religious faith in the system that it just does not enable him to imagine anything else. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anywho, but we get to Rosalind on the stand again, and it is time for her to be cross-examined. And Apollo asks Romo to let him do the cross-examination. Also, he points out it's Mister now, not Lieutenant or Captain or whatever the hell his title was.
I
Um,
think it was major technically.
yeah, Major, whatever it was. So Romo lets him. Um, and there's a nice little moment that I did like where Romo sort of refers to refers to Lee as his associate, and Adama sort of says, oh, his associate under his breath. So I did like that little beat. Um, but Apollo sort of points out first that, Rosalind, aren't you alive because of Baltar? And she sort of tries. I think what I like in how this is played is Rosalind is very clearly aware of where Apollo is heading almost at every moment, and she's trying to like swerve as best she can while keeping her cool, but Apollo pulls her back in. So at that question, she says, "Well, the insurgents were the ones that stopped the firing squad." But then Apollo says, "No, no, no. I mean, wasn't he the one that stopped you from dying from cancer? Wasn't he the one who saved you?" And she says, and there's a question of relevance. And I again, I
Th-
liked.
well, this is the very contrived like question of relevance. Like, oh, hostile
Hostile
witness.
witness.
We'd ask for some leeway, and the judge goes, okay, like I want to see where you go with this. I'm like, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because honestly, not relevant.
It's not. I mean, I'll give
Like
it. I'll give it.
where he's going is arguably relevant, but where he starts is definitely not.
Yeah. What I will give it is like Romo's argument of hostile witness would be a worthwhile argument in this case because Rosalind has shown herself to be hostile in many ways. So yeah.
Yeah, but hostile witness isn't just you don't like the defense. I think, and I could be wrong. I think to get declared hostile witness, there has to actually be like not a lack of cooperation with the questioning. So if you get someone declared a hostile witness, you're able to break some of the normal rules, like not badgering the witness and leading questions because they're not cooperating with the process. I don't think she's been uncooperative though. Like she's unpleasant to him, but I don't think that counts. I could be
Uh,
wrong.
so according to this, so you're correct. She doesn't necessarily get hostile and uncooperative in the legal setting. However, the way that it works is a witness who is antagonistic to the party calling them and may be unwilling to tell the truth. So I don't necessarily know the exact basis for it, but she has shown outside of court, and everyone's aware outside of court that she is hostile to Baltar, and even is the one sort of like pushed. She's technically the prosecuting side in this case. So like I think there is probably grounds for the hostile witness, maybe not evidenced in her demeanor right then, but there's probably grounds for that, in which case he would have the ability to ask leading questions like he is. So I think it's shaky, but I think it is plausibly viable in this case. If you're a legal expert
I,
out
I was
there,
I was gonna say
if you're a legal expert out there, let me know. my credentials are my dad is a lawyer and I had many arguments with him over the dinner table. So I've gotten practice at this, but I'm not certainly not a law professor by any means. So if anyone out there wants to contradict me, but I think it's one of those like it's not a guarantee, but a judge who is amenable to the defense, which the middle judge seems to be in this case, would at least would seemingly be willing to grant it. So yeah.
All right.
Anywho, it is allowed. I'll allow it, counselor.
Yeah.
Um, and so Apollo does ask his leading questions, and is sort of Rosalind is kind of forced to admit that she hedges it by saying Baltar's scientific knowledge saved my life, not necessarily
Hmm.
Baltar himself. And she said, "Well, he saved me by injecting me with the blood with the half silent, half human baby." I like that we get a shot of Hilo at that moment, who's like, "Right, fucking, of course you remember." And yeah, she says, "My cancer vanished completely," is her words. Um, and then Apollo asked about her medication. You were taking Kamala extract. Well, Roslyn at first, again, I do really like how this scene is written because you can, again, Roslyn at every point is clearly like well aware of where Lee is heading, and is doing everything she can to sort of play it off, but not, but like, no, she's not like overplaying her hand on it. You know what I mean? She says, I don't remember that. I remember all the names. And he specifically calls out Kamala extract. And she says, yes. Um, and he sort of points out, isn't one of the side effects hallucinations? And isn't it true that also those hallucinations were the ones that you described as visions from God? And Rosa said, they enabled me to see things that the scriptures, yada, yada, yada. Um, and Apollo walks right up to Rosalind, and Rosalind whispers to him, so that others can't hear, say, "Please don't do this, please." Again, I will say I really liked how this is performed on her part.
Yeah.
I think it's really good because again, she never loses her cool, but you can see she does not want this to go this direction.
Yeah.
Um, he asked her, "Madam President, are you taking Kamala at this time?" Um, and she says, "Captain Apollo, you remember that I always thought it had a nice ring to it. I'm so sorry for you now." Basically being like, "You've fallen so far from the tree." And she says, "Yes, I am taking Kamala." And he goes to, and so this sort of like points out, like, again, discredits her as a witness. But then as he's going down to sort of say, "I'm done asking questions," she says, "Well, aren't you going to ask me why I'm taking it again?" Um, well, actually, sorry. There's a bit here that I missed here. There's a beat here where Adama tries to stop the question from being answered. He's like, "No, I'm putting an end to this." This is what I was referring to earlier,
Yeah.
where it's like Adama definitely would do this, and this is a very good show of abuse of power. But the other counselors say, "Let it go forward," and she answers the question, "Yes, I'm taking Kamala." And then as he goes to sit down and say, "No further questions," she says, "Aren't you going to ask me why? Why am I taking questions?" And he tries to be like, "It's not strictly relevant. I don't need to ask that." And she says, "Go ahead, ask me. Finish what you started." And he asks, and she says,
Which I don't think the witness is allowed to do, but
"Yeah, right.
okay,
Yeah."
whatever.
But says, "My cancer has returned." So Rosalind's cancer has returned yet again.
Yeah. I I don't know. Like, here's the thing. I'm not going to rule out the possibility because I might not have been paying attention or might not have caught it. Between this and some other shit that's going to happen in a minute, I feel like there's stuff that should have started getting hinted at in episodes prior to this that if it did, I missed it, which might be on me, but I don't think it was. I
No.
don't think that we had hints that anything was wrong with her or that she was taking anything again. And it makes this moment feel cheaper than it should. I I don't think this is a bad reveal. It feels like this and something that's going to happen with Tori in a minute feel like there should have been build up to these things and they're just kind of happening now.
Yes. I agree completely with it. I don't mind where it's landed. I just wish we had gotten more build up to it. Yeah, it's implied there's not been any build up to it. You haven't missed anything.
Okay.
I think it's even implied. I think it's said. Yeah, they say in a scene that's coming up during a press briefing that she's only known for about a week, and I think last episode was presumably like several weeks ago.
Yeah.
So there's
So,
it's
yeah, so just conveniently between episodes, somehow the cancer returned.
yeah, somehow cancer has returned. um so yeah, I agree. I don't mind this payoff. But it's a payoff that had no build up, so it doesn't land as strong. But it's a great.
Yeah.
I will say I do really like this scene. But yes, it would have been much stronger had it had build up. So um, anyways, we have an Apollo and D scene where I'm like, yes, I agree with D. I don't know if the
Oh,
show agrees with D.
100%. Every word she says.
Yeah,
Every fucking word.
yeah, well, like Apollo's like, well, the system. She's clearly leaving him and pissed off that he's defending Baltar and did this, is doing all this. And he's like, well, the system works. The accused has a right to accuse the credibility of the witness. And D's like, well, the system is broken. The system elected that man. The system will let him walk. Not a system that does. It's not a system that deserves to be defended. It deserves to be taken apart and put back together again. And I'm like, yeah, D,
Yes.
go off.
Even aside from being a tear down the system type in general, like it is a fully valid point. If the system put that man in charge, then the system has problems. Because if it truly functioned, then somebody as unqualified as him, who did as much damage as he did, should not have been allowed to get into power. I'm just going to say it right now. This is the exact same fucking thing with Trump having won, especially twice, but even the first time, it was proof that the system, as it exists, even if you think liberal democracy works, you can't look at it resulting in somebody like Trump being in power and go, the system is definitely fine as is. At fucking minimum, you have to go, okay, this needs tweaking because that shouldn't have fucking happened.
Yeah, quick political rant corner from Jesse, and I'll try to make it quick. This is my big frustration that I always get into. I am an anarchist, right? So like I am very much like decentralized, more community-based governance is what I argue for. However, even if you are someone who is like liberal democracy should work, you should look at the democracy we have here in America right now and be like, this thing is built on white supremacy and the devaluation of specific types of human beings and very much a long list of Western patriarchal and white supremacist assumptions. And you can try to put band-aids on a leaking system, but at the end of the day, it's always going to try and revert back to this norm as we see through with Trump. So you need to tear it down and build it anew. And if you're building anew as a liberal democracy, I would even take, as much as I don't agree with liberal democracy as a system, I think it's always going to have inherent problems. But it would be better if you rebuilt it and created a new, like, fresh beginning that does not have all of this institutional baggage of white supremacy built up on it. And so I agree very much with D in this regard.
Yeah. Like, look, even if you're not an anarchist, even if you think liberal democracy is the best way to go, Trump has now happened twice, which means it's not a fluke, which means even if you think this is a good system, it is not functioning as intended. Because even if you don't agree with Jesse or me about the inherent problems with this system, at the very least, this man breaks what it says it's supposed to do. He breaks the format that we are told is supposed to be upheld by this system. So even if you believe in this system, this man's presence breaks it.
Yeah.
Deeply. And if it happened twice, it's not a fucking fluke. Something's wrong. So even if you agree with the goals of liberal democracy, we're not fucking getting them.
Yes. So, yes. Tear it down, rebuild. Even if you rebuild it on something that's like same system, but like we're gonna remove a lot of the like inherent like 3/5 compromise right in the fucking Constitution of dehumanizing black people. Like all of that bullshit is baked right into the start of this country. Anyways, that's a longer conversation.
I don't disagree. I just have like my frustration comes from a different angle because it's just this matter of like, look, even if you think this should work, it still isn't.
Well, that's what I say. Like again, it's not. It's I just don't think the system as is works. Again, this is a longer political.
Well, yeah, like I just that like this is where I can't fucking stand 90% of the Democratic Party who Just
We just need to
oh,
get back to good old governance again. We can
we
just
just
get
need
rid
to
of
put
Trump and
the
everything's back to normal.
yeah, which is exactly what they thought when Biden won. And how did the fuck did that turn out?
Yeah, well, everyone wants to do it again. Anyways. Anywho, that's a longer conversation for another day. But back to this. Dee leaves them. She says, I do, she's, Apollo says, I wish I could make you understand. She says, I do understand, that's why I'm leaving. And then Apollo says, you don't, you fracking don't. In which case I go, you know, she very much does. So fuck off, Apollo. And
Yeah.
again, it's like, the show is showcasing a good scene here, especially given the fact that Dee is a black woman. Just the optics of that fits very well. Um, but I don't think the show agrees.
Nope.
So yeah.
I'm not going to be as judgmental of this one because, at least as presented, it is not as crystal clear if we are meant to think D is correct here, as, like, say, was the case with the scene with him and Adama,
Mm,
which was very clearly structured. That this one is not as clear cut. There is, of course, the larger context of the fact that D has largely been presented as the bitch wife who who doesn't understand in previous scenes, so that doesn't help. But within isolation, the scene does not definitively take sides, so I'm not going to fully rip into it yet. I expect that later on she's either going to come crawling back going, "Oh, you were so right all along," or otherwise just become even more of a heinous bitch in the
mm,
eyes of the show.
mm.
I don't know which. I expect one of the two.
Uh, it's worse.
Fuck! I'm out of wine. God damn it.
Oh, there's a scene I know that's gonna come that you're gonna fucking hate. But that'll be a season 4 problem. Um,
I hope I like honestly, I hope people are still enjoying this podcast, even as we both slowly turn
I
on this show, me especially.
here's what I'm trying to do with this. Like I think it is interesting to me to analyze this show, especially in light of where we are now. Because it is sort of a show that I think has this uh belief, like this weird religious belief in the system, and like need to turn towards, like, oh, the system is inherently good, because I think it's a problem that has not been, we've not, as a culture, not been self-aware of until recently. And even now, I think a large portion of American society still wants that comfort of, like, we just get rid of Trump and we'll be fine, we'll get Gavin Newsom or whoever the fuck in, and it'll just be smooth sailing, and like fascism was just an aberration. It's nothing, like, it was like, this is not what America really is, and we can just get America back on track and get back going. And this show kind of represents that mentality in a large sense of, like, look at all these things, like, America maybe torture people, maybe America maybe did something in Iraq, but ultimately, at the end of the day, if we just stop doing that, get Bush out, we'll get Obama in, and hey, we have hope. Like, that's kind of the mentality of what the show kind of angles towards, and it's an unexamined thing. And I'll just bring it back to my experience on Start to the Cruise. I love you, Dr. Aaron, if you happen to be listening. So I'm not calling you out specifically on this, but it is this sort of thing where I think a lot of people, and myself included, looked back at this show as like, oh, it was so countercultural. But I think a lot of the implicit assumptions of, like, the goodness of the system is something that we as a culture have just not questioned. And I think it's actually very fascinating to look at this show in the context of today, to look at, like, the weird need that this show does to have to uphold the system. And I think that it is frustrating to watch to a degree, but it is a very interesting thing to analyze. So I think it is a worthwhile show to keep talking about. But yeah,
I think I need to pour a bigger glass of wine next time. That's what I
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. Or maybe it's all just cope. So we'll see. Um, Anyways, again, what I'm just saying is, be an anarchist. Just become an anarchist. Read more Bookchin or Emma Goldman or whatever the hell. Anyways, over on Colonial One, the president's giving a press briefing. They're asking, she says she's known for about a week. I'm not going in any detail. People start asking how it's going to impact her duties. Then Tori kind of goes off and says, she says, like, don't answer that to a question, and then says, you vultures can go pick over another carcass. And then Rosalind's like, hey, go back. And she sort of plays it off. It's like, temperatures are running a little high. And I love like someone asked the question is like, how long do you have to live? And Ross just looks at her and is like, how long do you have to live, Karen?
That was good. I love that. That was
Yeah,
fucking great.
it was a great little scene. But then Roslyn goes into Tori, and this is what you were talking about before, which is like
Yeah.
this is a decent payoff because like Tori's clearly coming apart. Like Roslyn's like, oh yeah, like I can't have you doing that. Like you need like if you keep acting like that, I will fire you and get someone else who can do her job. Like picked over another carcass as opposed to my carcass. Like you're implying I'm a carcass. Run a comb through your hair, which is an odd comment to a woman of color, but we'll let it pass.
I mean, it's
Um,
kind of an odd comment to a woman at all.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
with the appearance focus, it's weirder coming from a white woman to a woman of color.
yes. But the point ultimately is like Tori's frazzling a bit. Um, but no build up to that. It just sort of is
Yeah,
happening.
no, yeah, this was the other thing that I was saying. Like, there's something going on that has not been built up to. So okay.
Yeah.
And like, probably would have functioned better if this was actually one double length episode, because I assume we're going to get some kind of answer on what the fuck her issue is in the second half.
Hmm.
But yeah, watching this and being like, wait a week to find out, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
What the fuck is this?
I do really think this episode was meant to be watched all together because it works much better all together. I almost even suggested
I
that we should have
don't
watched
doubt
it all
it.
together. But alas. Anyways, we cut to Ty is like putting his ear up to the wall of the ship and he's starting to hear music in the ship. But then we cut over to, we'll come back to that in a second because we have another scene where Hilo comes up and he's the XO and Ty has been relieved for a little bit and he's sort of talking to Gata is like, oh yeah, it's just temporary. The Chrono will be back any day now. The Tillian ship the ship plan is working. They're going to have it regroup near the nebula. And Gata says they have only 3 more jumps till they reach the nebula. And then Hilo has this little speech that I liked, but is ultimately like something's coming next week. Because he's like, I just remember back on Caprica when the weather was about to change, you could smell it in the air. The sun could be out and not a cloud in the sky, but you pick up the smell and know something was over the horizon. The weather's changing, Felix. We need to be ready. There's a storm coming. So it's a bit of a foreshadowing beat. But it's well written and well said. I
Storm's
like it.
coming. I
Yeah.
think we're on the cusp of a season finale.
I know. It smells like a season finale, Gata. But then the last scene of the episode is Ty, seemingly drunk off his ass, is listening into the walls. He hears the song that he's been hearing all episode inside the walls, and he goes, "It's in the ship! It's in the fracking ship!" And we end out the episode.
Which is such a weird
Yeah.
place to end. It just contributes to the this was supposed to be one big episode thing.
Yes. Trying to bait. I could do a spoiler minute, but the let me put it this way. Anyone who wants the spoiler minute knows what I'm going to talk about already because it's coming next episode. So we'll talk about it next episode. It's listeners, you know what you know. If you know, you know. So we'll leave it there. What did you think of this episode?
It's okay. It's weird. Like, there's a bunch of stuff I don't like about it, but even the stuff that I don't like, I feel like it's given that this is flatly not an independent episode. This is flatly one half of a story that I don't know the back half of. As with for as little faith as I have left in the show, I am trying to give some degree of allowance of not judging this episode too harshly without knowing what the back half is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of hope. I don't have a lot of faith because I don't trust Ronald D. Moore. I just don't. But at the same time, I am trying to be fair. And for even with the scenes with the issues that I have, they might end up being at least, I don't think they will, but they could, in theory, be at least mildly mitigated depending what happens on the back half.
I agree. I'm trying to debate if I maybe should say this in spoilers or not. I'm going to say it out loud to you, mostly because knowing you, you're not
Mm-hmm.
someone to let something get overhyped for you. You'll take it as it is. So I'll just say this out up front. Um, I am very interested to see what's going to happen next episode because next episode for me is an episode that was very influential for me. To this day, there's a thing that happens next episode that like I still hold as like one of my favorite moments in television history. But we'll see if that lands. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to pay off next episode. For me, I will say I am less negative on this episode than you are. Um, but I certainly see the seams. I think what is happening with this episode for me is it's actually not that bad on its own, and I think has been evidenced by our talk here. We are both sort of more cynical about the show than I was about it when I first went into rewatching the show. And I think all of what this show has trained us to look at it through the lens of is informing how we're reading this episode in a large way rather than necessarily taking it on its own terms, which is the show's own damn fault. I will be very
Yes.
clear. So like
From
it
you,
is the
Dad. We learned it from watching you.
exactly. So it is the show's fault. But if I try to sort of pull back and be like, all right, just as a critic and taking this episode on its own terms, I actually think it's a solid episode with some acting and directing that I really like. Maybe a bit of weak writing, but not the weakest I've seen in the show, but it is performed and acted very, very well. And I really do like that part of it. So I actually end up liking this episode a fair bit, especially for the craft work on display. Um, but we shall see if it does land and if my nostalgia for the next episode holds. So
We'll see in a week.
we'll see in a week. All right. Anything else, Avira?
Nah.
Then stuff time.
Stuff. You can find my stuff by looking for Council of Geeks. Patreon pays the bills. That enables me to do this as my living. Main thing that funds is the Council of Geeks YouTube channel. I don't know what'll be the most recent thing up, but what's been going up the last few weeks, I did a video on Heated Rivalry, which was awesome. I did a video about the lingering harm left in the wake of 50 Shades of Grey, even all these years later. And I have an upcoming video talking about putting my foot down very much on the notion that we should be adopting any of the tactics of the right because they quote unquote are effective. Because holy shit, that showed up in my comments in ways I was not expecting, and I had to deal with that. So that might be the most recent video, or that might be like a week ago, in which case I don't know what the most recent video will be. But in any case, that's stuff that I've been talking about lately on the main channel. There's also the Break Room of Geeks, which is my secondary channel where I talk about whatever I have watched, listened to, played, or read lately. I'm not currently following any shows, but there's stuff I've seen and we'll talk about. I'm like a quarter of the way into the audiobook for Project Hail Mary because I want to get that done before the movie comes out.
Listeners, don't, if you have not seen it, don't watch the fucking trailer because it spoils way too much about that book. That's all I will say.
The trailer does spoil stuff that I'm only just starting to get into the book, but I will say regardless, so far as I am into it, real good book. I'm enjoying it so far.
I enjoyed it a lot, yeah.
So that's the Break Room of Geeks. Also, you can follow Council of Geeks on Blue Sky, and that's the geeky stuff. There is, of course, also the spicy stuff.
Spicy stuff.
And for that, you can look for Vera Wild. Wild is spelled W-Y-L-D-E. And you can find increasingly spicy content
Y-L-D-E.
on YouTube, Vera, where I recently put up a video talking about consent and how very important it is that we evolve our sense of consent, because it's always very important to know that everyone involved is enjoying themselves.
Say yes to subscribe to her channel.
And you can also find increasingly spicy content.
Increasingly spicy.
On TikTok. You tried so hard this time.
I did.
To get me to break, and you just did it to yourself.
I did.
It is adorable.
I will get you to break one of these times, Vera. I will do it.
Keep trying. For now, I'm very proud of you.
Aww. Yay, I'm going to shut your face. Um,
Good girl.
you can find me at Jesse Ginger. I do video essay style of stuff. The Ferengi video will come out one day. The Fable video will come out one day there, but there will be another video almost certainly by the time you have this is gonna go out. Yes, so because it's coming out before the Oscars, so this is the first podcast after the Oscars. So there is already another video out that is about Hollywood and why Hollywood does not actually sell the Revolution. Mainly focuses on Star Wars Andor and One Battle After Another, which are two movies that people point at as like, oh look, these are very like revolutionary works of art, and I go, no, they are not revolutionary works of art. They are anti-fascist and anti-authoritarian, which is good and great, but they are not revolutionary, and I point out how and why. So check out that video. I like that one a lot. You can also find me at Jesse Draft Dark, where I do news, reviews, reactions. I probably just finished wrapping up my reviews of Star Trek Starfleet Academy. It probably just ended. And I believe I'll be reviewing Invincible next, so check out that as it comes out. You can find me also on Blue Sky and Instagram. You can also find me on Nebulos, the streaming service that houses my movie Identities, as well as my upcoming episode of the show Subliminal, which you can check out when it comes out later this year. And then I'm also on Patreon, which helps me pay my bills, so you can support me there if you so choose, and I would greatly appreciate it. With all that said, anything else, Elvira?
Place your bets right now. What comes out first? Jesse's Ferengi video or Zack Snyder's Justice League 2?
I will almost be certain that the Ferengi video will be coming out in April, because the rest of March is busy as fuck on non-YouTube projects for me. So I will almost assuredly not be working on it on new videos until April. The only thing I might do would be a Star Trek Starfleet Academy season review, so that might happen. But anyways, I hope you all are doing well, and with all that said, I hope you all live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.